Hey, this question paper. Okay, recording has started. So welcome to today's tutorial. We'll be doing the 2023 exam, paper A, right? This is paper A. So that's the one about water crisis. So the Utopian Plumbing Agency wants you to create a simulation to train junior plumbers on replacing valves as quickly as possible to avoid excessive water leakages. The plumber, the plumber is located underground where there are valves and obstacles, right-hand side of the image. Okay, so this side over here, let me see, this side over here, it is valves and obstacles, right? Valves and obstacles. And then the task of the plumber is to replace the valves as quickly as possible before the ground above, left-hand side. So, okay, so this is the right hand side, this right on the right hand side, it behaves as underground. And then the other side is like above the ground, right? So this side would be underground, and this is above the ground, right? That's basically the game. It's a plumbing system, you can say. And then you must move a player controlled character, okay? So you see that it's controlled. That means we're gonna have some movements, right? Around a two-dimensional playing area in the game, the player is always underground throughout the game and cannot move to above the ground. Oh, so the player cannot go above the ground. They can only remain underground. However, the game must provide an option to see how much water has accumulated above the ground. Hmm. The task of the player is to close the valves before the ground above is completely covered in water. Okay, so let's start. I'm gonna open code blocks as usual. And you do know that when you do the question paper, right, you must save your code on the T drive, right? If you're using code blocks, you must save it on the T drive. So let's start. Let me wait for it to load. Um, Yeah, it looks this question paper, it's kind of confusing. It looks so short and simple until you start coding. That's when you realize, yeah, there's a lot going on here. So there's C and C++, we are doing C++, and then you give your project a title, right? So I'm gonna call mine Vortex Academy Computer Science 1A Exam 2023 Paper A. And then you save it on the T drive. I'm gonna save it anyway. So in order to save it to the T drive, you must choose these three dots. You click here, and then you go to this PC. You click on this PC, and then you're gonna click the one that is a T with the colon. This one is a C with the colon. So if I click here, this will be the C drive. So you're gonna look for the one with the T and the colon. Then you choose that one. In my case, I'm gonna save it in my folder code blocks projects. That's where I save my code blocks projects. And then next, make sure you choose GNU or GNU GCC compiler. If you don't choose it, it's not gonna run. It might run on the other side, but on your side it won't run, which is gonna confuse you because you're gonna think your code doesn't work, but it actually works. So choose the right things. And then you're gonna see the manager, right? To manage your project. I want to open the main.cpp. So that will just open here. Then I'm gonna close this side. Then let's start. So remember how I told you how to name the files? Me, I name my header file in my CPP file based on the name of the namespace. So I'm gonna take this name, copy it. That's how I'm gonna name my header file and my CPP file. Then to create those files, the header file and the CPP file, you're gonna go to File, then New, and then click File again because you want to create a new file. and then choose C++ header for a header file. Then you give it a name, which is just the name of the namespace. And then it's up to you to add the extension or not. That's up to you. A student once asked me, it's up to you. You can add the extension here and say .h. That's up to you. Or you can just not add it and click these three dots. And if you look at the bottom here, it actually does add the .h for you. So there's two ways you can go about it. Then you click save. Then I like to remove underscore included because I was taught by Prof. Coulter. I just like this style of coding. Then I'm gonna click all, select all. If you don't select all, you can't compile your code, your header file. So I'd advise you select all and you make sure you choose this. And then click finish. If you're using VPL, you have to know this by head, because VPL has no option to add a header file. So that's why I advise you to use code blocks. And the new file, not custom, I want file. So we're gonna create a CPP file. So choose C or C++ source. Next semester, you'll be using this option. You'll be using 1, 2, 3. Those three options. Yeah, and let's say second semester, why new? You guys better be prepared. And then choose C++, and then same name, three dots. Remember to click those three dots because you want to include those files into your project. If you don't include it in your project, yeah, your things won't work. And then select all and then click finish. And then there we go. Then I'm gonna declare the namespace. So namespace, and then paste that name. And then we know that even in the CPP file, we need to also add the namespace. So I'm going to put the namespace in the file. But before I do that, I need to include the header file. So hash include water space.h. Yeah, so I've included water space.h. Then now we can start, right? So before we start with creating functions and everything, remember the main important thing is enums, record structures, constants, all those things, right? Because they have marks. If you check the rubric, you see there's marks for structures, it's there, and then things like assertions. Yeah, so you need to make sure you answer based on the mark sheet. So if the mark sheet says you need to start the record structures are compulsory, then you have no choice but to use them. Then I'm gonna use type def, right? Because we want to use all the features that are available to us. Yeah, there should be marks for that. I'm not sure which part, but yeah, I'm going to use type def. So I'm going to declare the array types, right? But just to remember this, there's two game walls here, right? So the question is now, let me see, water. I don't know how you guys want to. Yeah, no, yeah, these people they want you to fail. I don't want to lie. I want you to fail. These papers are on steroids. I don't know how they want you to figure out this thing, but they expect you to figure it out. So if you look at the above the ground, which is this image, the game mode on the left hand side, you see that this game mode, the game mode on the left hand side represents whether there is water or there's no water. Which data type have we used that's similar to that? It's a Boolean, true or false. So that means I'm going to need to create a type def of type bool for this game world. And then I need to create another type def for this game mode on the right-hand side. But then the one on the right-hand side is the normal one with integers, right? So type int. So like I said, I don't know how they expect you to figure that out, but I guess you must figure it out. So type def bool um, pointer 1D. Let me see. Uh, yeah, this is tricky part. How am I gonna name it? I'm gonna call it water array, right? I'm gonna say 1D water. So 1D water. so that you can tell them apart, like which one is the array for the above the ground, which is the part that is water. Then underground is the part which is the normal game mode. So the one that starts with water is the one on the left hand side. And then type def. And then if you remember, we're trying to create a 2D array. So that would mean a 2D array of type bool, right? Because at each coordinate, it's gonna be a Boolean, true or false. True if there's water, false if there's no water. Then I'm gonna call this 2D water, right? But then if you look at the previous line, we've already used type def to say that in place of this, right, where you see this over here, a bool and one star, you can replace it with this one word. So I'm gonna copy that one word. And where do I see the bool and the star? It's over here. Then I replace that with 1D water. You don't have to, but I'm just using my understanding. You know, you can actually still leave it as bool plus pointer pointer. You can still leave it like that, then it still work. There's nothing wrong. But I like to apply myself to show my level of understanding. Then I'm gonna create the other one. So I'm gonna do this so that it doesn't confuse you guys, right? So let me change my comments. I'm gonna say this is above the ground array, right? And then here I'm gonna say under ground array so that you don't confuse them. Then I'm gonna say int pointer 1D array, and then type def int pointer pointer 2D array. But then remember, int pointer, it already has a name for it, so I can simply replace that with the name 1D array. And then these are my two arrays, right? That's done. The array part is done. Then we move on to the next thing. I hadn't planned, which is wrong, but let's do that now. Let's decide which numbers to use for our game mode. Remember, we have two game modes, so that means I'm gonna have two arrays. So if you notice here, right, most of the time we're gonna have like times two, most of the things, right? Like times two, the array for game characters, times two arrays because there's two game modes, and things like that. But then they should be of the same size, if I'm not mistaken. Must be provided. The world is initialized in the following way, blah, blah, blah. But I think both of the game modes should be of the same size. As stated with the diagram, you see that they are of the same size. So I think there should be the same rows and same columns. So after that, we're gonna need to, I'm just gonna plan the symbols. So basically, I'm gonna allocate numbers for each game character. So let's say for water, in the question paper, we're told that water should be a star. So I'm going to use a star. So that would be of water as a star. For the integers, we'll decide after I've listed all of the game characters. And then I know evolve is this cap symbol, this thing that looks like a cap. And then obstacle is a pound. Obstacle is the hash, right? And then player is the @ symbol. So player is the @ symbol. And then we also need to represent empty space, right? If it's empty, so if it's empty, it's just gonna be empty like this, right? Remember, you can still use like a dot. You don't remember, you don't have to necessarily follow this structure here. This is just an example, right? You can use totally different symbols as long as you understand the symbols. Because they're gonna read your code and look, they're gonna start in the header file, they look, and then they see, oh, this is the flow and things like that. Then they mark you based on the functions because they mark the code, not the output. So for me, I'm just gonna use that same empty space, like nothing, to show that it's empty space. So let's decide. So this will be the number 0 because we talked about that in the previous recordings or sessions. 0, remember 0 is an absence of something, meaning there's nothing. obviously, if empty space, meaning there's no game feature or game character there. So obviously 0 is the perfect number to use. And then for water, it's fine. I can use a 1 for water, and then 2 for this, and then 3 for this, and then 4 for that. Right. Then I'm gonna copy all of these game characters. So copy this. So we need to create an enum for it first, right? So I'm gonna do this and then paste it here so that you guys can also look at the code later. Okay, yeah. I wanted it to be a bit bright. So let's create the enum. So enum game feature, right? So I'm gonna call it game feature like this. And then remember the enums, right? It's basically a way to group constants under one thing, right? Or under one name. In this case, the name is game feature. And in constants, when you put them inside an enum, it starts counting from 0. So which constant or game feature is the number 0? It's the empty space. So I'm going to start from empty space, comma, and it increases by 1 as you add more constants. So after 0 comes a 1, which is water. So that's why I'm going to say water after 1, after empty. And then after water is going to be valve. After valve is going to be obstacle. After obstacle is going to be player, in that order. So there's my game characters, right? And then obviously this will be equals to 0. Then this will be equals to 1 and so forth. It increases by 1 as you go down. And then, yeah, we have our constants. Then we're going to need our game characters, right? So we need an array. So I'm going to say game feature array. So remember, the game features are not going to change throughout the lifespan of the game. So I'm going to make it a constant array. So const char okay, not me forgetting array. Okay, it's okay. Yeah, const char and then game feature and then square brackets is equals to, and then you initialize remember the number here is optional. You can put the number here or not, especially if you have curly braces on the right hand side. The number here is optional. But if you don't have curly braces, the number is a must. You need to put the number there. So remember array starts counting from index 0. So that means I'm gonna need to start with the empty space again. So basically the same order as here. But now we are looking at it from the game symbols perspective, not from the integer representation of each symbol. So an empty space, like I said, is just gonna be this empty space like this. I know it's weird, but yeah, I want it to look exactly like in the question paper. That's why I'm doing that. And then water, we know that's a star. And then valve, I think it's that exclamation, is that cap thingy. And then obstacle, I think is the hash, right? And then the player is the @ symbol in that exact order. I think we've done quite a lot of past papers. This should come natural now. Um, let's see. So let me just double check. Water is this valve. Okay. I guess those pills are working. I can remember things now. So we have this, and then what else do we need? Yeah, we need the record structure. But then before we get to the record structure, remember we need an enum for the game status, right? So I'm literally gonna call it game status. Like by game status, like is there an error in command line arguments? Is there an error in things like that? Error in conversion? Is it successful? Things like that. So I'm gonna say error in converting, right? Or in conversion. And then I'm gonna have error in command line CMD. arguments, right? And then I'm going to have comma success. Before I forget, I'm going to go to my main.cpp and replace this 0 with that constant that I just simply finished creating, which is success. Then I'm going to go back to my header file. And then if you remember with enums, it starts counting from 0, but you can also give it a starting point. But remember, it always increments with the 1 when you go to the next step. So I'm going to start this at number 2, -2, so that the next one is going to be equals to -1. And then after that is going to be equals to 0. So that's why you see that success is the value 0. That's why I replaced that 0 with the word success. It's basically, I know you might be like, what's the point for all of this? It's to make your code readable so that even a person who doesn't know how to code, they can read your code like it's English, right? That's the whole point of it. Then I'm going to create my record structure. So struct game world, or you can call it world game, right? That's up to you. You don't have to like name things the way I'm naming it. You can call it world game. That's still up to you. Or you can literally just call it game. That's up to you. But I'm gonna call it game world. And then within this game world, remember this is our game world. All of this is our game world. As you can see, our game world has two worlds. So it has two arrays. So here I'm gonna say 2D water. And then I'm going to call it array water. And then I'm going to have 2D array. I'm going to call this array world. And then I'm going to have the normal one, the normal things, right? Like my rows and then my columns. And then I'm going to go back to the question paper. Then we're going to go under initialization on the first bullet point. Those are the things that you're going to put inside the record structure. So it starts the size of the world. We already put that in there, which is fine, which is the rows and columns. And then we have number of obstacles. So I also need to add that. So int number of obstacles. Quite a very long variable name. It's not too long, but quite long. And number of valves, right? So int number of valves. Valves, right? So the number of valves. And then, yeah, that's pretty much what we need in the record structure. Let's just double check something here. I know that I don't know how you're gonna figure this out, right? I don't know. But sometimes, right, you can read this paragraph over here to see if there's anything more you need to add into the record structure. And you can also go to the update part because you can find more things to add there. Me, the way I like to approach it, right, is I like to update as I go, right? So far, I'm only still here. I'm not down there yet. So for now, this should be sufficient. All of this should be sufficient for now, right? There's nothing more I would want to add. So let's just double check. We have our arrays, we have our enums, we have our game feature array, then we have our game world. Yeah, then we need our functions, right? So this is our function prototypes, right? Basically, function declarations. You declare them without implementing them. So we need to initialize our game, right? So obviously, if we initialize our game world, we get back a game world, right? So this function should return a game world, and it's going to be called, I'm going to call it create world, right? Because it's used to create my game world. And then what does it take in? It takes in, if we go back to that same point, it takes in everything listed under bullet point number 1 under initialization. So it takes in the size of the world. That's the first thing, which is rows and columns. So int rows, int cols. I'll put the const reference, right? Just it's up to remember the const reference. You don't necessarily have to put it. It's just for it's for people who for if you're a geek, right? If you really read into C++, you realize that making it const reference, right? It makes your things way faster, right? But you don't have to do that if you're, especially if your application is not too big. In your case, you guys are not making very big applications. If this confused in the question pay in the when you're writing the test, I would advise you not to put it. Don't put const reference. Just remove it entirely. That's fine. You're not advanced users yet, or advanced programmers yet. You get that experience as you go on, as you further your studies. So after the size of the game mode, we pass in the number of obstacles. So int number of obstacles. I don't know why students get confused, but I know it might be like, Mara, all of this that I'm listing, I'm naming it exactly the same way as my record structure. These are two different things. Here you are declaring variables. Here you are taking in numbers from a user. Two different things. Totally two different things. I name them the exact same way because it's the things that I'm getting from the user. If you don't call it rows, what else can you call it? I hope you get my point. You can't call it get number of spoons. I mean, it's not about spoons. We're getting a number of rows. So you're gonna still call it rows. So I'm actually kind of forced to call it rows so that my code makes sense. And then after number of obstacles, we take a number of valves, right? So int number of valves, right? Like I said, the const reference thing, right? It's optional. You don't have to do that. I'll see. I think I'll do it. Yeah, I just like to be correct. I'll put it. You don't have to put it. Right? Don't cram my code. Don't cram my approach. If my approach works for you, sure, that's still okay. You can master the way I write. That's still fine. But if you're not comfortable with it, don't do the const reference thing. Yeah, so you only pass by const reference if you know that you don't want to change it inside the function. In this case, this function is meant to create the world, so I should only be receiving the values and not receiving them and changing them, right? I should only receive them and initialize my record structure. That's all. So that's why, hence, I pass it as const reference. That const is to prevent me from changing it inside the function. So it basically is like pass by value. If you still remember the session we had on functions, it's like passing by value, but you're passing by value in such a way whereby you don't waste memory, right? You save memory. It's like an advanced way of passing by value. It's still the same as removing the const reference, but it's an advanced way. So let's see. Yeah, so we have the create world function. Then we obviously need to destroy world function. So void destroy world function, which obviously takes in the game world that you want to destroy. So game world, and you want to destroy it, so you're gonna change it. So you're gonna pass it by reference, right? So rec world, I'm saying I'm prefixing it with rec world because it's a record structure, right? You don't have to name things that way. It's just my way of naming it. For example, instead of array water, you could have named it as ARR water. That's still fine. Or water array, whatever works for you, right? The main thing you need to understand is like what types, how to approach the problem and things like that. We are teaching you how to solve problems, right? Using IT, using computer science. We're not teaching you how to cram things. There's a huge difference. Then we need to be able to display our game world. So void, you can call it show world, right? Like I said, I don't want you to cram. I'm gonna use different names to show you that things will still work. I know you guys are new to code, but just because you name functions the same way I've named it, it doesn't mean your code should your code hypothetically should run. No, it doesn't work that way. You should name things whatever you feel like naming it. Don't name the way I name it. So I just only want to show the world. So I'm gonna pass it by const reference. So const game world. reference, because I don't want to change it. If I did want to change it, then I would omit the const. In this case, I do not want to change it, so I need to put the const, because this function, as the name suggests, is to only show the game mode. And then after this, we need, what else do we need? We need the movement. Yeah, I felt something was up. I missed I forgot the enum for movement, but it's cool because remember the way I said I'm answering as I go. But I forgot movement. Let's see. Let's just quickly check movement and create the enum for it. The player cannot move outside the boundaries of the world and cannot go above the ground. Okay. The player cannot move past obstacles. When the player moves into the same location as the valve, it is automatically replaced and it disappears. Okay, that I get. Update. Sorry for that. It was network problems. Yeah, I was having network problems. So let's continue. So they didn't, this is quite odd. They said they're talking about movement, right? But they didn't say like it's moving diagonally or randomly. This is weird. How you're supposed to move the player? I guess it's moving in all directions. They didn't say. If you look at the question paper, they didn't say. They usually say. Let me check exam. Or maybe with exams, they say, "Ah, you guys have enough experience, so you should be." Oh, it seems like all the other ones have passwords, eh? Oh yeah, okay, this one doesn't have. This is paper C. Let me check. Oh, this one about zombies. Yeah, didn't you guys have a prank on this? Yeah, I think there's a prank on this. Yeah, this one we did. Let me check. Can move in any direction, including diagonal. You see, here they stated. I don't know why. How come they didn't state here? They just simply say the player cannot move outside the game boundaries of the world. So that means the player, and they didn't talk about random. If they didn't talk about random, right? Okay, the player begins random in a what random in a what. Okay, so they didn't say that the player moves randomly. So we can only assume that the player is controlled. I guess they want you when you write the exam, you need to be very prepared because you need to be able to analyze and understand questions, right? They did talk about it here. They said you must move a player in a player controlled character, meaning the player is controlled, right? And they said player controlled, meaning someone enters a move to move the player. So that's why they omitted telling you that the player can move diagonally or not. I don't know how you figure that out, but at least you're doing past papers with me. Now you know. If it says the player the game the that player is controlled, player controlled character, right? Just know it's movement. Like move up, move down, move left. So I'm gonna go here and then I'm gonna create another enum. I'm gonna call it move, right? Because it describes a move, right? What move are you making? So I'm gonna start with move up. In this case, right, these constants that I'm creating, I don't care what numbers they are. I really don't care. The only thing that matters is the names. So I'm not gonna initialize them to any special values. Unlike here, you see here, it mattered what values it had, each constant had. So that's why I had to initialize it to those numbers. So move up, move down, move left, move right. Then we move up and left, and then we move up and right, and then we move down and left, left, and then move down and right. Right? No pun intended. So these are the movements, right? You can call it, what move are you making? I'm moving up. I don't know, move. If I just type move, it kind of feels off. So I'm gonna call the inner movement. Describes the movement. So I'm gonna call it movement. Then I'm gonna need a move player function, right? So void move player, right? And I'm changing my game world, right? So I'm gonna pass it by reference. And then comma, the move that I need to make. Basically, am I moving down, left, right, up, or diagonal? So it's the movement. So move, um, I'm gonna call it player move, right? Why am I calling it player move? Because did you notice something? If I call it move in small letters, it actually highlights, it changes color to show me that there's already something called move inside C++. So now it's going to create what we call a collision. So now the C++ will be confused. It'll be like, do you mean the move inside C++ or you mean your own move variable? Like it kind of gets confused. So you need to name it uniquely, right? So that's why I called it player move. And yeah, you might want to be a bit extra. You don't have to. You might want to be a bit extra. Let me just be extra. I don't know if my way of coding is kind of confusing you guys. Like I said, if you don't have to put but to be honest, even though it might feel like it's confusing, you are supposed to understand it. Because, for example, to destroy the world, you can't destroy the world without passing it by reference. So you see, by reference and by value, you really need to understand those. So it's a must. So I'm gonna put it. So I'm gonna pass the movement by const reference because the movement is not gonna be changed. So it's gonna be constant, right? So I'm just gonna say const reference. Then yeah, we have those functions to move the player. And then let's see. I could create an update function, right? It's up to you. You can create an update function and make it public, or you create the update function and make it private. By private, it means that you don't the function the update function is not available inside main.cpp. That means you only declare it inside the cpp file of the header file. So we have movement. What else am I missing? End game. Oh yeah, we also have end game. I've almost forgot. So end game, blah blah. Okay, so we need to also include that in the record structure. So to represent whether the player has won or lost. So bull has won, and then bull has lost, right? So we need to add that. We could have added it later, but it's still fine. You can add it now. So yeah, that's pretty much all you need. Now we start implementing the functions. Yeah, you can ask your question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I wanted to ask if like using enums is,
If
would you
what?
say it's also, would you say like an enum is also a type of like a variable type? Because I see in your function there by
The,
movement, you said,
yeah, it is a variable type. So in a way, you can say that enum is like struct or enum. Okay, another way to understand enum, right? Enum is exactly like type def. It's like we're defining a new data type. So that's hence I'm passing it, using it as a data type here because it is a data type.
oh, okay.
Do you
Yeah,
understand?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's continue. So we have our game mode, create world. Am I missing something? Why does it feel wrong? Like I feel like something is missing. Um, oh yeah, I knew something was missing. Remember, we are working with command line arguments. We need to add the function to convert to integer. So I need to add that. So it doesn't matter where you add it. So I'm going to add it somewhere here. So it should return an integer because it's meant to take in a string, and then convert that string to an integer. Basically, give us back an integer. Another word for give us back is a return. So it should return an integer. So I'm going to call it convert to int, right? Because it converts to integer, duh. So it takes in a string from the standard namespace. I'm going to call this string just value, right? Simple. Remember, string is part of a header file, so we need to include the header file. So now we need to go back at the top. It doesn't matter in what order you do it. You can start by including the header files before you start type def and enum and all that. It's up to you. Me, I just go with the flow. Sometimes I can start with the header file. Sometimes I can start with the namespace. It's up. It just goes to it's up to me in what based on how I'm feeling on that day. So let's include the header file. So we're gonna start with C asset because I need to do assertions, right? And then hash include cstd lib. Then hash include C time because we need to randomize, right? There's random number generation somewhere. And then hash include IO stream because we need to print. Remember, the show world function is gonna use cout, which is cout is part of the IO stream library. And then hash include what else? String stream. Yeah, so s stream, string, and then hash include the string header file itself. And then what else is needed? I feel like I'm missing something here. Okay, let's just go with this for now. If I forgot something, I'll remember it along the way. So yeah, now once you're done, right, what I would advise you to do, because you might make a huge mistake. You might forget the address of operator. Maybe on the header file you pass by reference, then in the CP file now you're passing by value. You can make all those mistakes. What I advise you to do is just copy all of these function prototypes from here to make your life easier. Copy this, then go to the CPP file, paste. Then you replace all semicolons with curly braces. So there's a semicolon, replace it with curly braces. Another semicolon here, right? Replace it with curly braces. And then you see how easy my work becomes. Right, so there's you see, straightforward, fast, no time wasted. So don't be slow. You don't have time. I know 3 hours sounds like it's a lot. It's not. 5 hours is a lot. Three is not enough. You notice when you start writing. So it's best to find ways to, do shortcuts. Find ways to do shortcuts. Then inside here, that's when I'm gonna say using namespace standard, because that's where I'm gonna start using cout and things like that and cin. So I don't want to keep typing standard colon all that. I don't want to have to specify which namespace am I getting this variable from. I don't want to keep typing that. So what I would do is we'll start with the random number generator function. So int generate rand int. Yeah, I'll call it generate rand int. It takes in a lower bound and an upper bound. So I'm gonna, like I said, you don't have to do the way I do it. I'm gonna pass it by const reference. So const int reference lower bound, comma, const reference upper bound, right? Like this. So yeah, I'm just trying to be as accurate as I possibly can. Then what I'm going to do is I'm gonna create a range. So int range is equals to the upper bound minus the lower bound, right? Plus a 1. We did discuss why that is. And then I return the rand function, which generates any random number. But then this random number might be very big, like very big, like up to, like, let's say maybe 9 quintillion, right? We don't want that. We need our random number in a specific range. So we divide by the range variable, right? But then if you leave it like this, we did discuss this, you need to add back the lower bound so that it starts at exactly that lower bound. So this is always the formula for this function. And you're gonna need it in second semester. So I'd advise you to master things now. So I have the random generator function. I'm gonna start with the simple functions, right? Like you see that this time around I'm doing it in a different order to show you that you don't have to always start from top to bottom. No, just write the functions that you can remember the implementation of, and which are also easier and quicker to type. So I'm gonna start with this one. So I'm gonna do an asset, right? And then asset is basically, if you remember, asset is just to make sure a certain condition is met. So what condition is that? The condition that these arrays that I want to deallocate, they actually have memory. They are not empty. They're not already empty. There's no point in trying to clean something that's already clean, right? So I'm gonna make sure that it's not equals to null pointer. And then since I don't have time in the exam to be typing, I'm gonna copy paste. Then change this to array world. Done. Right. Remember asset, in other words, you can replace asset with basically make sure. It basically makes sure that this array is not nothing. If you understand logic, not nothing, it means you're negating nothing. So that means nothing becomes something, if you get the logic. So that means I'm making sure that these arrays are worth something. They have something to delete. Because there's no point in deleting something that's already empty. Then if it passed, right, it'll skip all of this if everything passed. Then it will go down here. Now I can deallocate safely because I know for fact that these arrays were allocated memory for. Then I'm gonna go through the rows. So int r is less than record, which is part of the record structure, right? Remember, these rows are part of the record structure. So I have to specify the record structure followed by a dot, then rows. I simply can't just write rows because the thing is, if you just write rows like this, right? C++ looks for the first set of curly braces, which is this, right? Then it's gonna be like within those curly braces, where is the variable called rows declared in? It's not gonna find it. Then there's gonna be a problem. So that's why I'm gonna have to specify that it's part of the record structure so that C++ doesn't get confused. And then R++. Then we did talk about, I advise recapping the recordings. I'm not going to explain too much because we did talk about all of these things. We did cover them. So delete the memory remember we have two arrays here. This is going to be quite a lot of code. So because we're managing two arrays. So I'm going to start with the array water at every row, right? So we're deleting the columns array at every single row for the array water, for the water array. Now we delete for the other array. So rec world dot array world at that specific row, right? Basically at every single row. Then in order to avoid this thing called the dangling pointers, we make the arrays point to nothing. Basically they point to null pointer. So I'm gonna simply copy this and then it's equals to null pointer. Like I said, we did discuss this. I would advise going back to watch the recordings. Or else, the thing is, if I over-explain, the sessions become very long. We can end up having like 3 hour, 4 hour sessions. That's not practical. That makes no sense. So some things I have to tell you that you can just go watch the recordings. So I deleted the memory here for both arrays and make both arrays point to nothing because there's nothing in that memory we've deleted. Remember, deleted. Remember the computer C++ reads from top to bottom. It starts here, and then once you've deleted, that means there's no longer that memory. So I need to change the pointer to point nothing. Then once you're done, I delete. Remember here we're deleting the columns, right? So delete columns, right? Now we delete the rows. So delete rows, the rows dimension. So delete the rows dimension from array water, and also delete the rows dimension from array world, which is the array for underground level, right? Remember, this is the underground level, and then the water array is the above the ground level. Then we need to make them point nothing. Make them point to nothing. If you forget to make them point to nothing, you won't get that error code segmentation fault. So that means if you're testing and something goes wrong, you will never know that the issue is with your pointers or with your deallocation. But if you set it to null pointer, it will show you the segmentation fault error. Then you'll know, oh, I've tried to access memory that's already deleted. That's the whole point. That's why we are doing all of this, setting it down to null pointer. I did discuss that in the previous session. Go watch the recordings. So array water is equals to null pointer. Then recworld dot array world is equals to null pointer. Right. Yeah, you see that the code is kind of a little bit. You're just adding extra lines, right? So you see, we added an extra line here, 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 because we now have two arrays. So that's the full code for destroying. Yeah, you need to be very careful with two game modes. Two game modes are not, you need to be very careful, like very, very careful. Because if you delete one array and not the other, your game crashes. Because I don't know, C++, like I said, we did talk about it. C++, it's like it was built for people who know their stuff. It follows this philosophy that, nah, the people writing the code are geniuses. They know what they're doing. That's the problem with C++. You can ruin a lot of things just coding in C++ if you don't know what you're doing. So this function, right, let's go to create world. So this function creates a game world. So hence I'm gonna create a variable of type game world, like world. At the end of the day, I know that this function returns that game world, so I need to return it here once I'm done, right? So that I don't forget. The main point of this is so that I don't forget, because to be honest, there's a high chance of you forgetting because you'll be panicking, you're stressed, you're like, will I pass this test or not? You're just spending too much time in your head. So you might forget, make silly mistakes. So that's why I'm doing this, so that I don't, even if I forget my code doesn't crash because I do and I remember to return. Then now I need to initialize. Remember these values, right? These are inputs. Remember we talked about IPO, input, process, and output. So inputs that I'm getting, basically I'm getting values from the user to initialize my record structure. So recworld.rows is equals to the rows from the user. And then recworld.calls is equals to the calls from the user. And then we also have number of obstacles and number of valves. So let's initialize those. So recworld.number of obstacles is equals to number of obstacles from the user. And then recworld.number of valves is equals to number of valves from the user. Then now we need to allocate memory for our arrays. So allocate memory for both. Remember, we have two arrays. Like this is a very tricky situation. You're managing two game walls. You need to be very careful. Allocate memory for both arrays. So let's start. So rec world the dot. It doesn't matter in what order you do it. It really doesn't matter. Is equals to new. Remember, array water is a two-dimensional array of Boolean of type bool, right? True or false. So that's why I'm gonna say new bool pointer pointer, right? Like this. But then remember, we used type def and said in place of this, when you see a pattern like this, the keyword bool and one star. You can replace that with the 1D water. That's the whole point of type def. Then we allocate memory for the first dimension. Because remember what we talked about this. Each star represents its own dimension. That's why we had 2 stars here, because it's 2D. It's 2-dimensional. So we start by allocating 1 star, then we allocating the other star. So to allocate the star, you replace the star with square brackets because you want to give it a size. You want to specify how big that dimension is. Then within those square brackets, you pass in that size that you want. In this case, it's going to be rows. We always start with rows. Rows, when you start with rows, makes things easier. It's up to you. You can still start with columns. But I remember I did mention this. If you start with calls, that means every time you go through the game modes, right, your for loop will always be the first for loop will start by going through all the columns because you started by allocating the columns. Be very careful of that. And then array world is equals to new 1D array star. But then we want to allocate for the stars, so we replace that star with square brackets and the size, which is just rows again, right? It's the same thing. Remember, we're just managing 2 arrays. There's nothing new here. The only difference is that we are having more things to manage. That's basically it. There's nothing new. Then we go through all the rows. So R is less than. You don't have to say record.rows because remember, we still have access to the rows from the user. So I can just type in rows like this to simplify my work so that I save time. Remember, when you're in the exam, you don't have time. And then R++. Then allocate for every single row for both arrays. So rec world dot array water at location R is equals to new bool pointer. Remember, we allocated the first one, the first pointer, right? Or the first star. So we're done with that. So we erase that. Now we are left with 1 star or 1 dimension to allocate. So we replace that 1 dimension with square brackets. Then we pass in the size, which is calls, right? But then remember, you don't replace bool yet because we didn't say. Remember, we don't have something like this. We don't have type def bool, and then we have a different name here. No, there's nothing like that. If you remember, there's no such here, right? You see, there's no such. We don't have that. So that's why I leave it as bool here because I don't have a type def for that. There's no need to for it. And then I'm done allocating for the water array. Now we go to the underground array, which is called array world. At that location row, it's equals to new int, initialize it calls, right? Same thing. Then both game modes, they start with an empty space. So I need to say, go through all of my columns now. So int C is less than calls, C++. My bad, don't make this mistake. I put 3 plus signs. Don't make that mistake. It'll be hard to figure out the error. Yeah, so you might be fast to typing, but also be attentive. Pay attention to what you're typing. Immediately after you're done typing, double check it so that you don't have to go back to that line of code. Yeah, now we initialize each location to start as an empty space. Right, to just start as an empty space. So remember, we have 2 game modes. So every time I initialize something, I need to do it for both game modes. Yeah, it's really quite annoying, but it is what it is. And then array water RC is equals to empty, right? And then the array or the other game mode RC is equals to empty, right? So we are done initializing the arrays to empty. Now we can go to the placing of things, right? If we check here, so far we've done this part, right? And a bit of random. You can look at the mark sheet if you want. There's some marks that we got already. I don't want to calculate because it's gonna waste time. So the world is populated in the following way. The player begins at a random location underground. You see, when I want you to be very attentive to the question paper. It told you underground. By underground, they mean use the underground array. That's where you should place it, right? That's what they mean. So yeah, this is kind of mm, mm, this is a very tricky situation because we have two arrays. That means we need to tweak or make changes to our place feature function. It's up to you how you want to do the place feature function, but I think we've covered quite a lot. I think I should end the session here. Then we can continue tomorrow. Let me see how, yeah, it's been an hour. Yeah. I think that should be enough for today because I need to prepare for ComSci 2A session at 8. We're also doing a past paper, an exam. But let me just, before we end the session, let me see. Duh, 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 duh. Mm, the place feature. Yeah, it's up to you. I'm thinking about a way to implement the place feature. It's up to you how you want to implement the place feature. I'm thinking of two ways. I think I can implement it in two different ways, but it's fine. We'll cover that in the next session. So let me stop recording. So that's it for today's session. We'll see each other tomorrow. I think we should normalize having sessions since you are on a study break. I think you can have sessions during the day, like maybe one session during the day and then another in the evening, something like that. But you let me know in the group chat. Oh, yeah, that's